Hey guys, Matthew, and welcome to the 15th episode of my bot scaling series. So today we're going to be looking at the second of the memories, which is the augmented distant memory, as you can see right here. One thing to note about these maps is that even if they have different tiers, they're always monster level 80, which means technically the monster tier doesn't really matter. Okay, now let's go ahead and quickly recap in terms of loot and the boss himself. So in terms of loot, in the previous video, the first one of the series, when it comes to the memories, I went over a lot more in depth when it comes to the loot, but a recap very shortly is basically the circle of fears and the circle of anguish are typically going to be your main money makers for the most part, but not every circle of fear or circle of anguish or any of these drops are typically the same, right? So what I mean by that is that you could get two of them and they could be worth vastly different amounts, because not only does which unique you get actually matter, but the implicit also matters. So for example, if you get charges or curses or stuff like that, but also the affixes on the ring itself, right? Which ones of the two affixes that you get here, or sorry, there's 5 affixes and you're going to get 2 of them. Which one you get is also going to drastically, change the price and the value of your item. For example, a circle of fear could be worth literally 2 chaos, but it could also be worth 200 exalts. It really comes down to combinations of implicits and of course the mods themselves. You're typically going to be looking for damage, so cold damage, buff effect, or any of the damage and buff effect. That combination is always the best, pretty much. And then of course for the implicits is going to be anything that further increases the damage. Curses, charges, cast speed, etc, etc. Alright, so let's look at the PoE lab guide provided for this boss, which will be linked in the description of the video for the mechanics. So he has a frontal blast, which is basically where he charges up his fist, punches forward, does a little bit of blast. He does the same thing in a dashing fashion when you're not within melee range. He has the vortex, as all of them do. He has the flame beam, where he charges up a beam and then blows it up in front of him. Doesn't do it's pretty easily telegraphed. That being said, if there is a lot of attack and cast speed on this boss, it does become crazy how fast he's able to combo these. All right, he summons stationary filaments. These are what you see in the corners here, and they shoot projectiles at you, which will all ignite you. You can see them here, the projectiles they shoot, right? They will all ignite you. It's a pretty damn annoying to deal with. I'll talk about that ignite immunity and how important it is in this fight. All right, next he has a leap slam, where he just jumps up in the air and slams the ground. As you can see, there's pretty massive AoE to this, so you definitely want to pay attention to where he's jumping. Next, he has the meteor shower, where he basically jumps up while spinning and throws a ton of meteors. The safest place to be, which might sound weird when he does this, is actually right under him, as he doesn't really do any damage there, but there's typically going to be meteors all over the place. All right, next he also has a beam blast, which it looks like he's charging up two little swords up here, and then he slams, and it does a massive AoE that does a ton of damage. So you definitely want to be to the side or behind him when he does that. And finally, he does have a minion phase, or at least he summons some minions, as most bosses do. Okay, so let's hop into the showcase. As always, we're going to be clearing with Freezing Pulse, 5 link, nothing changed on the build, and then at the end we are going to swap into our Ice Spear for the single target. Now, one thing to note about these maps is that you actually never know if you're going to be doing a very hard map or a very easy map. You also don't even know what kind of rewards you're going to get. It is completely undecided, right? So what I mean by that is that you see how these maps have map has 4 or X amount, 3 to 5 additional random modifiers, and then 2 to 4 additional synthesized modifiers. These are actually what's going to decide whether the map is easy or hard. But the thing is, you actually don't get to know before you get inside the map, and you can see. These are going to dictate both the sort of loot that you're getting as a reward from dealing the map, not the uniques, but in terms of loot from the actual clearing the map, right? So for example, synthesized magic monsters have a 7% chance to drop a div cards, 1% chance to drop a fossil, 20% chance to drop a valve fragment, right? Stuff like that are going to be your rewards, and you don't actually know them before you actually get inside the map, which is pretty interesting. And then of course the bosses, their loot is predetermined. You always kind of know what you're gonna get, or at least the pool of different things that you can get. Cool, so perfect fossil, that's pretty dope. Alrighty, so whether or not I would full clear this map really depends on the rewards for me personally. Okay, so let's go ahead and throw an Ice Spear on our build, and then we are going to hop into the boss fight itself. Close my mini map. Go ahead and debuff this guy. I'm gonna try not to kill him too fast though. I want to showcase the mechanics. So here are some dashes that he does, right? So dashing dashes. This is obviously the some more dashes. Okay, I'm actually killing him way too fast. This is the sword thingy that I was talking about, right? Charges that up, followed by a big beam. Definitely want to move out of the way from that. Here's a slam on the ground. Look at that AoE, pretty massive. Massive AoE. Here's the tornado stuff, right? What's this? Okay, so this is the filaments where they all spawn and they basically shoot towards you. So you basically want to move a little bit. Here's it comes a big slam. Some dashes. So everything this guy does ignites you. Literally everything he does. So more slams, more slams. See if you can see a bit more things. Okay, more of the thingies on the ground. More filaments going to be throwing stuff at me. I'm probably gonna die here. Okay, here we are. So we have indeed died, which is good because we were out of flasks, and that was that. Okay, so again, more dashes. More dashes. Come on, show us something different, dude. Show us something different. All right, so here comes a bunch of ads. Now the ads are definitely a great way to get some flash charges.
Be still.
Okay, here comes another one of the vortexes. Oh, these are the tornadoes. So you want to sit under him, but unfortunately he had a bunch of tornadoes under him as well. So definitely wasn't the right place to go this time around. But typically he doesn't put any tornadoes or whatever the thingies under him, so you're pretty safe there. All right, another vortexes, followed by some filaments, followed by some dashes. All right, come on, do something else. All right, here comes a big slam. Boom, boom. Big damage. All right. Charges up the swords. Hits in front of him. Followed by beam. Huge damage there. All right, another one of the vortexes. And that is just about all she wrote. So let's go ahead and finish off this boss fight. And I'll talk about a couple tips that I have for him specifically. Because he is pretty damn annoying if you don't have this thing called ignite immunity, because everything that he does, but also pretty much everything that the minions do, are going to ignite you. So typically I don't really flask swap for bosses outside of like a stationary or fragment based bosses like Shaper, Uber Elder, or whatever, where I'll take out my Quicksilver for a damage flask. Typically I never really flask swap, but for this specific boss I think having ignite immunity is like mandatory, and because he doesn't do any cold damage, there's no reason to use your any sort of heat flask, right? There's no reason to use any cold flask. So what that allows you to do is basically what I did is I used my Chemist Diamond Flask of Heat for chill and freeze, and I changed it up for a burning and ignite flask. So that is going to make the fight so much easier, because if you don't have this and you get hit by basically any of his attacks or the ads or the filaments or literally anything else, right, you are going to get ignited. And if you do get ignited, you're probably going to die, quite frankly. Okay, so we got ourselves a nice little synthesized sapphire ring. So probably the best of all of them, right? Sapphire ring being the circle of fear for the Herald of Ice. That being said, of course, these implicits, fire damage, lightning damage, and minion move speed are not the best in the world, but it doesn't mean that our ring is worthless. If we identify this and we get the double damage modifiers, we still have a ring which is going to be worth a pretty good chunk of money. So let's have a look, and we got one of them. We got the buff effect, but unfortunately it came with a maximum cold resistance, which is definitely not something anybody cares about. Maybe the buff effect by itself is worth a little bit, but I don't think this is too great of a ring, unfortunately, because obviously it's got a lot of potential. When you see a circle of fear, a sapphire synthesized ring, you should get happy, because you could literally be one scroll of wisdom away from being absolutely tremendously rich. All right, that's pretty much it for my second memory guide, the Augmented Distant Memory. Before I go, as always, I will say a massive shout out to my supporters: Joseph, Atticus, Don, Brandon, Fruitfly, Reese, Panda, Central Bard, Adorant, welcome back, Nerod, Shakeoff, Thomas, Nike, The Great Master, Raymond, Alex, Emil, Tim, Grimoire, Lost of the Map, Flame Scorpion, Nathaniel, Richard, Johnny, Scott, Ronald, Willie, Kevin, Moonkiss, Mercury, Bitizen, and Axel, as well as, of course, anybody else who was just remain anonymous and anybody else who has supported me in the past. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys in the next guide. Peace.